functions are. And in this video, I'm going to show you a very simple example of how to create a function. So we will have two very important pieces. We have function header and then function body. So let's create each one and then talk about them. To do that, we are going to do an example. Let's say you have a friend whose birthday is coming, okay? So we want to sing the happy birthday song for that person. All right, so I wrote 4 lines that sing the happy birthday song for our friend Emma. Okay, so if I run this, I will see the happy birthday song to be displayed in Python. So whenever you want to sing the song, you're not repeating the whole song to let the others know that you want to sing the happy birthday song. You just say, let's sing happy birthday song. So you just say what you want to do. You sort of call that song and everyone knows what they need to sing. So the same concept applies to functions. When you want to call certain instructions, you just say, okay, I want to do this, and you call that function or that song in our example, and the instructions are going to be followed. Okay, so we are going to do a very similar thing. We are going to give a name to this song, which is happy birthday song. And I'm going to define my function and put those instructions, those 4 different print function as part of my routine or my function in Python. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do is create my header. I'm going to say def, which is a keyword for to define functions. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to say happy birthday song. Okay, so this is the name of my function, and this function, again, with all the functions that we have in Python, we always have the parentheses at the end. Okay, sometimes you pass something to them, sometimes you don't. All right, in this example, I'm going to leave it empty, and we are going to talk about what goes into those parentheses in following videos. Okay, but for now, let's just focus on having the parentheses, set this function as simple as we can to see how it works. All right, and I'm going to end this function with a colon. All right, so now I have my header. I need to have my body of the function's body. The function body is going to be happy birthday song, but remember you need to indent them. All right, so I'm going to press tab so everything is indented. That means they are part of this function. Okay, so now whenever I want to sing this song, I'm going to say to my friend, let's sing happy birthday song. I'm not going to sing the whole thing to let them know what I want to do. Okay, similar to this one, similar to functions, the definition of functions in Python. If you want to call a function, you just say its name. Okay, if I want to say I want to sing this song, I simply going to call that function. I'm going to say happy birthday song. Okay, and always have the parentheses. All right, so now I'm saying, all right, let's call this function, let's invoke this function, and as soon as I do that, it's going to go and follow the instruction inside that function, and I'm going to see those lines that are printed. All right, so now let's take this line out. All right, let's take this line out. I'm going to take it out from my program. And now in this code, what I have is the definition of one function only. I do not have anything else. I'm just defining that function. All right. So what happens if I run this code as it is? All right. So if I run this code, nothing is going to happen. There is going to be no output. Why? Because in this code, I just defined the function. So in Python, like what Python does is it starts with your code, it just goes through your code, and as soon as it sees a keyword def, it knows it reached a function definition. So it's going to basically read the header of that function, remember the name of the function. All right, so if Python is remembering the name of that function, knows it exists. All right, and it's going to continue on with your code. All right. If we do not call this function, it is never going to come here and run this instructions. So again, Python remembers your function, remember its name. If you call it, it's going to go to that definition, go inside and run those codes and gives you whatever the instruction dictates it to do. Otherwise, it's not going to do anything. It just remembers those functions, not going to take any actions. It's not going to execute any of these lines unless you call that function. All right. That is why we need to call a function if you want to execute the instructions that you have inside those functions. Otherwise, nothing is going to happen. If you do not call the function, nothing is going to happen. So this is the function call. And remember, you must have the parentheses. If I do not have the parentheses, let's run it. Here you go. You're just saying, okay, this is the address of this function. You're not going to get anything. Make sure you include the parentheses with every function, built-in or user-defined function. We always use the parentheses. Okay, remember, for instance, for print, you always have parentheses, input parentheses, int function parentheses, len parentheses, range parentheses. So with all the functions, user-defined, built-in function, you must have the parentheses. All right. All right, so I'm going to slightly change this function and change it to happy birthday Emma, okay, because I want to sing it to Emma. So when I'm going to call it, the name that you use to call should match the name of your function. Otherwise, you're going to get an error. Like, let's keep it as it was. So if I run it, it's going to give me an error says this function is not defined. Okay, so make sure the name of your function matches the name that you're using to call it. So now I have it for Emma. All right, so let's say I have another friend whose birthday is also today, and I'm going to sing that birthday song to that person too. So I'm going to say happy birthday Alex. Okay, so now instead of Emma, I'm going to have Alex, and I'm going to have a function call for that too. All right, so now I have one function that sings happy birthday song for Emma. I have another function that sings happy birthday song to Alex, and then I'm calling both of them. So let's run it. So first I'm getting happy birthday song for Emma because I'm calling Emma first, and then I'm getting this one for Alex. All right, so if you change the order of how you call those function, that means first I'm calling the function that sings this birthday song for Alex first, and then I'm calling a function that sings the happy birthday song for Emma. All right, so now if I run it, I should see it flip. So I first sing it for Alex and then I sing it for Emma. So let's run it and see. Here you go. So the first one is going to be for Alex, and then second one is going to be for Emma. So the way that function's definition come, the order of the function definition does not matter. Okay, the part that matter is when you're calling them. All right, so if I call this function, Alex function first, you're going to go to that definition first, and you're going to execute whatever instructions you have inside that function first. So the order matter when you're calling those functions. All right, just keep that in mind. That is very, very important. You can also have a function that calls other functions. All right, so I'm going to now create another function. I'm going to call it main, and this function main is going to call my other functions. And this is the way that I'm going to ask you to write your functions from now on. So you're always going to have a main function. It takes care of the main stuff in your program. Okay. If you need to call any function, they all need to go into your main function. So now I'm going to ask you a question. What happens if I run this code as it is? I have three functions. I have function happy birthday Emma, I have function happy birthday Alex, and I have my main function, which calls the other two functions in it, right? What happens if I run this code? Do I get any output or I don't, right? Just think about it for a second. Pause this video, answer it, and then run your code. See if what you get, all right? All right, so hopefully you have the answer by now. So if I run this code as you expect, I'm not going to get any output. The reason is, again, if you do not call a function, you're not going to get any output. You're not going to execute the instructions that you have inside them, right? So here in this program, my main function is the most important kind of function that I have that takes care of everything else, sort of managing all of the other functions that I have. If I do not call this function, I'm not going to see any of the instructions that I have inside main function to be executed. Right? So if you want these two lines to be executed, you must call this function main, right? So after I'm done with my code, I'm going to go and call that function. Now I'm saying, all right, I have three definitions. Python remembers those functions, all right? It knows they exist, all right? And then I'm calling my main function. So it goes inside this main function, and inside main function, I'm calling other functions. So from here it goes to function called for Alex, and then after you're done executing all of those lines, you go to the next line. So it comes back here and you follow on with your code. So the next line I'm calling another function. So you go to the function called for Emma, execute the instructions that you have inside it, and come back here, right? After you done with the function call for Emma, your program inside main is finished. So you're done, you come back here and you don't have anything else. So your program is basically it stops. All right? So basically, it all depends on the order of stuff that you have, and you need to make sure if you have a main function, you need to call it for sure. Otherwise, you're not going to get any output because you just define the function, you never use them, all right? All right, so now let's say you have two more friends whose birthday are coming and you want to sing the birthday song for them. The functions that you have are very similar to each other. It doesn't make sense to have sort of repeat the instruction that you have inside each of these function for 100 peoples because their birthday are in a year, of course. So how can we change these function to avoid repetition? Right? The only thing that is changing between the instructions that you have inside these two are the name of that person. Okay? The name of the person that you want to sing the happy birthday song to. All right, so let's think about it. What if we can pass a name to these functions and say, all right, I want to sing happy birthday song for Emma, or I want to sing happy birthday song for Tom, or I want to sing happy birthday song for Alex, or for Tommy, or whomever you have whose birthday is coming, all right? So instead of hard coding the name, you can pass the name to your function and say, okay, here's the name of my friend, sing the happy birthday song for this for that person. Okay, so let's see how we can do that. So I'm going to delete the extra function that I have. I'm going to take the name out and I'm going to make it kind of general. So now it is happy birthday song, all right? And I can sing it for whomever I want, all right? So this part needs to be replaced by something else, and we are going to fill this part in a second. But for now, I want to pass a name to this function. If you want to pass something to a function, you simply pass it as argument. You put those arguments inside the parentheses, all right? So I can say name, I want to pass a name to this function, all right? And whenever you come to that function, that name is catched by that function. All right, so you can say, all right, n is coming here. So whatever you're passing to the function, you can catch it here. And the name of the variables that you're putting for when you're passing that argument versus when you're getting that parameter, they can be different because you're passing a copy of that to your function if you have a mutable data type, right? So you can like assign it to a different variable name. So it doesn't matter what variable name you're picking. You're just for immutable data type, such as integer, such as string, such as float type, you just passing a copy of that data to your function, right? So you can assign it to whatever you want. So one thing that we went over in our previous lecture, but I want to emphasize on that is the values that you put inside parentheses. If you have more than one, they must be separated by comma, and we call them formal parameters or simply parameters. When you pass them outside of a function, we call them arguments, okay? Formal arguments or just simply arguments. Actual arguments or arguments. And then when you get them through your function definition, we call them parameters. Okay, so I'm passing a name to this function, I'm passing it to this function, you're catching it here. When you have your function definition, all right, and you can use it inside this function. So this n is going to be local only to this function, is only defined inside this function. It does not exist outside of that function. Okay, so for now I'm going to say, all right, I'm going to get this variable name from my user. What is your name? Okay, so we want to sing a birthday song for whomever is running this code. All right, so we're getting a name and we are passing that name to that function. All right, so for now let's just run it, see if we what we get, and then we come back and add some more stuff to it to make it to display the name that we want. All right, so if I run it, I will get, okay, did it? All right, so if I run, I ask for a name, I'm going to say, okay, my name is Ellie. I cannot type my own name. Ellie. All right, here you go. So happy birthday to you, and then sing the song. And here for name, we haven't put anything yet. All right, so let's fix that part. All right, so now we have this variable n. Again, you can call it whatever you want. I can even call it name, same variable name that I passed here. It does not matter because it's just a copy and you're creating a new variable inside that function. So now I called it n and I have access to that variable n here. And to show you that it's same as the value that you pass, you can say, all right, print n, so you see that exists. So if I say my name is L, and then here is that variable L, okay? Even though you called it n when you caught it from whatever was passed to it, you can print it and it's exactly the same thing as you passed to it. All right, and it's a very nice feature because you can like pass different values to different functions and use them, similar to, like, for instance, for print function, you're passing different values to your print function, and print function takes those values and does something, so you see the output on the display. All right, so I'm going to take this line out because I don't need it. I want to fix this part, so I want to add that name to this line. All right, so you can do multiple things to add it here. So I can say, all right, happy birthday dear, comma, n, comma, add the period at the end. All right, so let's run it, see what we get, and then make some small changes to make it to look better. So what is your name? My name is L. It says it sings the happy birthday song. This line is like sort of looks fine, except there's a space between the name and the period that you have. One way to fix it is, first let's see why that happened. Remember, with print function, you can separate different arguments that you're passing to print function using a comma. All right. Whenever you add a comma, you're simply adding a space between your arguments when you're printing them. All right. So print function tries to mix your stuff to look readable, so it automatically add a space for you. If you do not want to add a space, you need to use string concatenation. So you combine a couple of strings to each other to create one. All right. So in this example, let's say I do not want to add a space between these two. So I can simply say, all right, add string n, which is the name of your user, with a period. So you simply taking out this extra space that you have, you concatenating the name with the period, and then it should do it. If you want to also concatenate all of the strings that you have, you can do that, but make sure you have a space after dear, because if you do not put a space, then your the word dear is going to be glued to the name that you passed to it. Let's see here. What is your name? Alex. And then you have dear, no space, Alex, because you concatenated those strings to each other. So there's no space between them. So make sure if you're using concatenation, you add that space manually, okay? Or just use comma, all right? I prefer to like keep them all sort of use the same thing for all of them. So if I'm using concatenation, I'm going to use it for everything else. If I'm using comma, I'm going to use comma, unless there is like a certain situation in which you cannot do that. So now if I run it, what is your name? Tom, and then everything looks good. All right. So now it does not matter whose birthday is coming. You can use this one simple function to sing this song for that person. All right. So if it is Emily's birthday, you can do that. If it is Alex's birthday, you can sing that song for Alex. All right. So depending on whose birthday it is, you just simply pass that name to the function and you get the outcome that you desired.